Anybody know the song? Okay, other than the person who suggested I play the song. Jackie, who came all the way from Wagga today for this. Anybody else from Wagga? No. No. Huge surprise there. Huge surprise. Anybody else but Jackie know the name of the song? Yeah, what is it? German, bold, italic, and who wrote it? Or who sings in it? Kylie, there you go. There's your Pride Connection, month of Pride. All right, I am here to talk. Is this in the way? People probably can't see. It's too high, isn't it? Can you see the screen still with that there? Okay. I'll reveal that later. Surprise, it's a typewriter. All right, I'm here to talk to you today about typewriters. I'm going to talk about the beginnings of typewriters, some of the social history, some of the design that I've just fallen in love with, and talk about what it looks like today. Now I'm going to try this. We're going to try this crazy PC and try and turn music on. Sound guy, here we go. Ready? Nope.
Position as a passport to good jobs in government offices. And a particularly fast typist might even become a very confidential secretary.
Very. So happy.
But it's hard luck. The winner is a man, and business gentlemen prefer blonde. Yes, you heard.
Snap. You just know, he was just like... All right, so I was sick at home one day. It was many years ago, and I somehow stumbled upon this show, this documentary called California Typewriter. And in it, it follows around the kind of last typewriter shop in California. And it really moved me, and halfway through the movie, I'm on Facebook Marketplace looking for a typewriter. So it was before COVID, so I was a little bit sick, but I did go and buy one. This is it. It's a Royal 200. Took this the other night. There's my dog, really interested in this Royal 200. And then I bought another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And then my husband asked me if I liked being married. And so I haven't bought any since. But the very last slide of this presentation is my dream boat. And when that comes up for the right price, I'm willing to risk the marriage. This guy's name is Turi Pellegrino. And Turi, we don't know much about him, but we do know that he had a friend who was a Contessa who was blind. And he developed this machine, it was called a typographer, to connect and communicate with her. There's a novel that came out a few years ago called The Blind Contessa's New Machine. I don't think it's very good. And it's not factual, but you know, it's interesting. But because of Turi, all of a sudden there was this interest in and other people in figuring out what would a typewriter look like. How could we do this? What would the interface look like? And I just took these kind of examples. There's lots and lots of typewriter examples out there. But this is kind of the intervening years of trying to figure out how the hell are we going to input? How's it going to work? Now we look at it and we just go, it's a foregone conclusion how a typewriter works, but they had to figure this out. My favorite is called the Malin Hansen writing ball. And it's just beautiful. And I actually found a video of it in operation. It's a different version of it, but it's in operation here. And so you can see she pushes the top for the letters, and then they imprint below on the paper. Pretty cool. But then along comes Scholes and Gildens. And Scholes and Gildens, they create this version, they patent a version of a typewriter in 1868. And this thing uses piano keys. And they keep on refining it, and eventually they get to a machine. And it looks kind of maybe similar to this. The internet's not sure if this was the blind Contessa or if it was his daughter. We're not sure, so let's assume it was his daughter. And the whole idea was he would take her on road shows to show how this machine worked. So from the very, very early days, typewriters were associated with women. That was the machine that they eventually showed to Remington. And Remington, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit there. Anybody see what's on the top row? Close to QWERTY, QWE period TY. So this is a precursor to QWERTY. Eventually, they released the Scholes and Gildens typewriter, and in 1878, it's patented, and QWERTY is there. All of a sudden, QWERTY is there. I'm going to tell you a bit more about that. Does anyone know why QWERTY exists? Why we don't use Dvorak or whatever it's called? It slows you down. The QWERTY slows you down. Because so one of the running theories is like when the arms go up, if you have them on opposite sides, it'll jam less. And that's always been the thing I heard. But in 2011, there was a journal article released by some Finnish academics who suggested actually no, it was because of telegraph operators, that they were helped in the design and refining process, and this kind of organization of letters made it faster for them to type. ER is the 5th most common collection of letters in the English language. It makes no sense why they'd be together if it was about jamming. So if you learn nothing else tonight, that's probably not going to it. Hopefully there's something better. This is what it looks like in action. I just love this. So you can see there's the ribbon. It gets hit up, it hits the piece of paper, and it imprints on the text. Like 30 some odd years later, even though Lillian Sholes, the daughter of Sholes, was the person who was the first typewriter, because remember, typewriter was both a word for the people who operated them and the machines themselves. She was the first typewriter, but the first kind of like known typewriter person was a man named Miss Saunders. I've got her name here somewhere. Mary Saunders. Remington gave her a gold watch inscribed with 1875 to 1905 to the pioneer typewriter operator from the pioneer manufacturer. And they credit her with being the person who suggested QWERTY. So one of the many women in history whose kind of name has probably been lost. We talk about Shills and Gildens, but good old Mary Saunders, important role to play. Remington comes along, and they need something to do with this factory. This factory was used to make munitions and arms during the Civil War. And they need to figure out what to do with it. So they figure out that maybe making typewriters would be a good move. And it was a very smart move. They then got together with these guys, the Yoast typewriter, Smith Premier, all these other guys, and they kind of created a pact. They called it the Union Typewriter Company. And they all agreed to use QWERTY. The only reason that we have QWERTY on our phones, in our offices, on all of our keyboards, is because these 4 companies and Remington got together and said, we're going to do that. They also did a bit of price fixing. They agreed to make all new typewriters $100, which was way cheaper than some of the other typewriters on the market at the time. And in today's dollars, that's about $3,700. So it's not cheap. Like, it sounds cheap because it's like $100, but it was very expensive. That was for rich people to be able to use. For those of you who don't know what Vision Pro is, it's a thing Apple will release eventually. The first typeset book, a typewritten book that was ever submitted for publication was Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain, according to Mark Twain. We don't know if that's true. A bunch of people were involved. Authors have obviously used typewriters throughout history. One of the really famous ones is Cormac McCarthy. This is his machine. He used this to write over 5 million words. Most of his books, where they won Pulitzers and National Book Prizes, was used with that typewriter. He put it up for auction in 2012. They expected it to go for $20,000. It went for $254,500. The next day, he went to a flea market, and he bought another one, exact same model, for $20. And he continued to use it until possibly yesterday when he died. He just died yesterday. But Tom Hanks is still alive, and he recently released a book that was done on a typewriter, so it's okay. In addition to typewriters that you're familiar with, typewriters were used to do specialized typewriters for things like making music. This one's all for music notation. It's at the National Gallery in Canberra. This one here is a Braille machine. This is for making Braille, and it uses the same mechanisms that the typewriter used. The last one, which I quite find really fascinating, is, has anyone seen one of these before? Yeah, it's Japanese typewriter. So lots of different countries develop different technologies around typewriters using the same kind of approaches. Now, yes, there's all these other uses, but the really big, the really important use was for business. Because, as this quote says, more correspondence can be done in a day than half a dozen clerks can do with a pen with this machine. And that's really, really what it's about, is the workforce, right? It's a business machine. All of a sudden, anyone could have professional quality correspondence. And it was a great equalizer in the business world. It was particularly an equalizer for women. The quote, I'll read it out loud: "Women ordinarily make better operators and are much more satisfactory to business houses than men. Why? Well, in the first place, it's a woman's work. It requires patience, quick apprehension, steady industry, and deft fingers, which women often and men seldom have in combination." There's another quote from 1888 that says, "The typewriter is especially adapted to feminine fingers. They seem to have been made for typewriting. The typewriter involves no hard labor and no more skill than playing a piano." Who can play piano? Remember that pianos, typewriters, and sewing machines all of a sudden become the thing that every household has to have. So there's some evidence to suggest that the design of typewriters were actually made for women, going back to Scholes, who used his daughter to advertise typewriters. Do we know if that's true or not? We don't. We'll never know. But by 1910, over 80% of professional typists were women. And do you know what they were paid? Half what men were. Right? So these offices, like you see up there, they didn't have bathrooms for women. They were not organized to have women working. And you could pay them half as much. So they would make accommodation to figure out a way to get women in the workforce. In 1870, they had 7 women who were recorded in the census who had the job title of stenographer or typist. By 1920, that number is 500,000. That's a huge, huge jump. And because of this is from the National Women's Party press room, because of this, the suffragette movement, temperance movement, which is a completely separate thing, all start to coalesce. People are organizing in the workplace in really profound new ways. Because before this, women had domestic work and teaching, and the second you got married, you were out from teaching. And working from the home, obviously. And now you had this opportunity to work in a profoundly new way. And it really changed society globally. It's a really fascinating thing. I could do a whole Nerd Night talk on just the influence, the importance of typewriters and the trajectory of women in modern society. That's not the talk, but it's pretty interesting. Now I'm going to move on a little bit to my favorite part of typewriters, which is really about a version of the typewriter called a portable typewriter. Because yes, the business world wanted them, but they were also advertising to people who had houses, who wanted to go traveling, who wanted to take their typewriters with them, to authors, to all this other stuff. I particularly like these two here. Low marks, she writes with one hand. High marks, she writes with two. A new Royal Portable can raise her mark by 38%. So marketing hasn't changed all that much, because I took this photo from Twitter the other day. If you're not using AI, you're falling behind. But they really focused on the beauty and the design. And to me, this is part of what I think is amazing about typewriters. They're built beautifully. They're meant to last. They're gorgeous machines. And you've got a spectrum of colors. What other company would do that? Oh. Right, so Apple wasn't so clever in 1998 when they released this, because they were taking design cues from something that happened 50 years before. These photos are all amazing typewriters, and they're from the same, all of them are from the exact same year as those vehicles were released. So you can look at a typewriter and you can almost date it by looking at it and know roughly when it's from. It reflects what happened with society. Some of these companies would buy back used typewriters, and then they would put new cases on them and resell them, because the innards were completely fine. They could refurbish them, and then they would resell them with a new model, with a new look. All right, so what happened to typewriters? Good work. Gold star. Oh, I forgot to do this. Hold on. Cheers. Yes, computers killed the typewriter, effectively, as you all probably guessed. Lots of the design cues from the computer, though, were taken from, like, for example, this keyboard on the Apple II was modeled after an IBM Selectric, which came out in 1961. It was a way that they saw they could transition workplaces to computers because it was familiar, because it sounded familiar, and the feel was familiar. In 2012, believe it or not, 2012, in Wrexham, in the UK, after making typewriters since 1985, the last typewriter came off the factory floor. They'd made 5.9 million of them, and that was the last one that went to a science museum. I just read today that the Instant Pot has filed for bankruptcy, and the problem is that the Instant Pot is just too damn good. People don't have to buy another one. It lasts like 7 or 8 years. They're not disposable enough. And it's the same problem to some degree with a typewriter. Andy Rooney said he's got a typewriter for 50 years, but I bought 7 computers in 6 years. So why do I care about a typewriter? Why do I get excited about typewriters? Why do I think maybe you should get excited about typewriters? The reason is because you put a piece of paper in and you have, oh, hear it? There it is. If you need a moment, it's dark where you are. You put a piece of paper in, you can feel your fingers imprint on each paper forever. There's no backspace, so you have to really think. You have to really think about what you're typing, what the words you're going to put next are. There's no viruses. In the apocalypse, that machine will still work. The only thing you need is ribbon, and they're still making new ribbons to this day. If you were inspired at all, if you pop onto Facebook Marketplace, there's some typewriters. You won't have trouble finding one. The prices range. In the last 5 years or so, they've gone up quite a bit. I talked to a guy in preparation for this talk who's one of the kind of really nerdy guys on one of these. Actually, he's on both of these sites, on the Australian typewriter collections. He's the far left. His wife had a similar ultimatum for him, as my husband had for me, and her limit was 150. So he's got 150 typewriters. There was a movie that was filming in Western Australia, and they were looking for typewriters. He said, "Well, I've got enough for the whole classroom scene that you need to film." The world of typewriter fanatics, and I'm not one. I should have started that by saying I'm not an expert. I just really like them. Is a fascinating, fascinating world, and they're so willing to help. They're so willing to reach out, to extend opportunity. I'm going to show you a typewriter in a second that I've been looking for a long time. And that guy on the bottom left-hand corner, which some of you probably can't see, he found it for me locally. He said, if I buy it for the price that is offered, can I refurb it for you? And then you can just pay that price in the postage. Like, who does that? Amazing. There's something called type-ins, where you show up in a park or a local, this one's in Canberra, and you can talk to the, there's some young people sometimes too. And you can write some poetry. You can try out a typewriter. And much like I began the talk about California typewriters, there is one last typewriter shop in Australia, and it's right here in Melbourne. His name is Tom Koska. He's 80 years old this year. He's had the shop since 1969. He's taking off a few months. What's that? He's taking off a few months, but he's been recognized as well internationally by Tom Hanks, as you can see from the letter that Tom Hanks said. Tom Hanks is a huge typewriter fan. The last thing is that National Typewriter Day is just around the corner on June 23rd. So you too can celebrate with Kermit the Frog, the patent that was filed in 1868, 155 years ago this year, by Christopher Scholes. Now, this is my dream boat right there. That's called an Oliveri Valentine. Beautiful. It's in the MoMA Art and Design Museum. But this is the one that I was waiting for so long. And I wanted to bring it in this little Targus bag because oh, come on. Now, just get ready. Here it comes. Oh, there it is. And you can, I'm going to put it at the front of the stage, so feel free to come up here and play with it. And it just, here, hold on, listen to this. Thank you for listening to my talk. I hope that maybe you've thought about typewriters in a different way, and the name of the talk is Just Your Type, because I really believe that there's a typewriter out there for everyone, and when you start typing with one, something happens, you think differently, and there's nothing, I swear to God, there's nothing better in this world than getting a typewritten thank you card from someone. It will blow their minds. Thank you very much.
You do you. I'm just going to take a moment with
Yeah, I got paper there. I brought paper. It's all right. That's called a Hermes Baby. It's not the same company as the ones who do the scarves. It's a Swiss-made device, and it's probably about 50 some odd years old, in mint green.
I'm sure there's probably like a name for this, but the finger dent in the keys?
There probably is a name for that.
Right in the feels. All right, some questions. Yes, we got somebody just here. What's your opinion on the digital versus analog typewriters, I guess, on the electronic
Do you mean like the really new ones like typewrite, or do you mean when they've mixed electronic into typewriters? Yeah. Good for you. Go for it. Enjoy. They're not for me. I like a machine that has no power. I think there's really something seductive that the power can go out and I can put a candle on and they work. The other thing is that the electric ones, which are made, the earliest ones go back to the mid-50s, they're really hard to fix now because the parts are harder to come by. And then there's electric, and then electronic. And electronics are where they have computer chips. So like that Brother one that you saw on the screen before, it'll be impossible pretty soon to find and repair any of those machines.
Not usable in The Last of Us.
That's right.
Don't
you
want
can't
it.
use them in The Last of Us.
Don't want it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And watch out for mushrooms.
Oh, are they fungus proof? That's a good question. Yes, you over there.
Let's say they unlock the doors to Mesa, you get access to your special typewriter.
Yeah.
One sheet of paper, would you
Oh, that's a big question. If you get unfettered access to the Dreamboat,
Yeah.
one piece of paper, you only get one shot. Mom spaghetti, what do you write?
Jesus Christ. That's it. Just Jesus Christ. That's it. It was here.
Yeah.
And then
Like
people were
really
like,
pour
what?
down the page.
Especially if it was like locked away and they just let you in for a couple minutes. Yeah, the next day you'd see, I'd be great. I'd love that. That'd be good.
Not an apology letter to Phil for having stolen this and absconded and sorry for ruining the marriage? No? Okay.
By the way, if anyone sees one of these for like under $500, just let me know. Thank you.
Don't tell Phil, though.
It's right in the back. I see one.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, the question, I guess, is what happened to these brands? Where did they go? Some transitioned more successfully than others. Some, the intellectual property was bought by other companies to use. So they were making Smith Corona typewriters in the 90s, but they weren't made by Smith Corona. They had long gone. Some companies like IBM transitioned really beautifully, right? And they've lasted for a very long time. Remington still makes guns. Underwood doesn't exist. Underwood was one of the biggest typewriter manufacturers, and they completely don't exist. Most of them, I think you could do another talk on typewriters from a business perspective of the ability to shift and adapt to new social norms. Some did it better than others. Brother makes printers.
Stay tuned for Wade's 60th anniversary, 60th show talk. Yes. How does using a typewriter rewire your brain or take you to your little special place?
I think because every single time you push a key, it's imprinted on the piece of paper. It's there, it's permanent. Unless you have whiteout, it's not going away. And so you really have to be intentional with what's coming up next. It makes you stop. It makes you think about what you're going to write before you write it. It doesn't make it perfect, but I think it just cognitively changes the way that you process information. And in that California Typewriters movie, one of the people who's interviewed is Jack White from the White Stripes. And he said he was like in this big block and he picked up a typewriter off eBay or something like that. And all of a sudden he was producing Seven Nation Army. And he attributes it to because he was thinking differently. Plus, you're not have your phone on you. There's no notifications coming at you. I still have to have my phone out so I can ask Siri to spell check things, but it's amazing. She does it so well. She's very good. Mine's a he.
So, follow-up question. Are you not a fan of the typewriters that do have a backspace and have the ability to erase what you've typed built in?
I just say, do what you want to do in life. Go for it.
But not for
not
you.
for me.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, I think we've got time for one more. If there is one. If not,
There's one in the front.
That's cool. Oh, yeah, sorry, please.
You said that the last typewriter was sold in 2012. Who was buying them?
Who bought the last typewriter? Well, I think that was a museum, but who's been buying them up to, I guess, modern times up till
That's a
2012?
great question. I don't know who was buying them, and how big the production was, how many were coming off the line. 2012 seems incredible, doesn't it? The previous factory to that closed in 2011, and that was in India. Typewriters were huge for much longer in India than they were in America and Europe. There's a really amazing story that when the Berlin Wall fell, one of the factories had all these typewriters, and they didn't know what to do with them, so they put them into a school gymnasium, and they had a sale, a huge sale, and they put all of them on for $2 a piece, and none of them sold. They were there for months. Because it was already at that point in time when people saw the writing on the wall that computers were taking over, and there was just no interest in owning a typewriter. And how many does a household need? Aside from my household, you need one, right? Can you also give a huge round of applause to these amazing bosses, because I won't have another mic tonight. They've done a phenomenal job of taking over. Thank you so... Come on, give them some love. So Ebony, Steph, and Halo, thank you so much for having me. Can I do the sign-off?
You absolutely can.
Great. Nick, play us some tunes, grab yourself a drink, and we'll see you in 10 minutes.